Hi everyone, in this video I'm going to show you how to do a minor service on a BMW F800ST. This is a 2008 model, but the other models shouldn't be that much different. And if you're tackling this as a DIY enthusiast, I'm sure you'll make a way around any variations you may find. First thing we are going to do is loosen the oil sump nut. I've already taken the bike for a spin to warm up the oil, so it should flow nice and easily. Make sure you have a sheet of cardboard underneath the bike just for any unforeseen spills, and a handy little oil tray to catch all the oil that comes out. So size 24mm spanner, hold the nut with a socket. To get the last little bit of oil out, it's a good idea to get the bike onto its side stand for a few minutes. When replacing the sump nut, just make sure that the copper washer is in good condition. If there are any deep ridges in it, you may need to replace it. If it's okay, you can even just flip it around the other way. It's a soft metal which is going to create a nice little seal in there. That's a size 24. Doesn't have to be too tight. The oil filter can be easily removed with an oil filter chain or strap. Have a pan underneath the bike as well to catch some of the oil that drips out. The chain doesn't really fit in between the oil filter and this unit, but if you get a bit of a grip on it, you'll get the process started. When replacing the oil filter, make sure this area is very clean. Some filters come with a lubricant already on the rubber seal, but it's good practice to just take some motorcycle oil and give it a good smear, and the filter simply screws on. Find the thread in the middle, tighten it hand tight, because as time goes on it will get tighter and it'll be more difficult to remove if you use any kind of tool. So just hand tighten it just like that, and that's ready to go. To get to the spark plugs and the air filter, we will need to remove the seat because these top 3 fairings need to come off. In order to remove all the top fairings, we need to loosen these 4 fairing screws, the 8 that are holding the center fairing in place. There's 1 on the side here and 1 in the front for this top side fairing, as well as the 2 that are holding the mirror in place. Those are Allen key heads, size 4mm. Okay, all those screws are off on both sides. The center fairing simply lifts out, and the top fairings pop out the front and come off as simply as that. Here we have our airbox. The filter sits just inside here. You remove these little clips by pressing in and lifting them out. They just slide out, and the pipe comes out by pulling it forward and lifting it up. The air filter sits inside there, so whether you have a permanent filter like this one, which you clean and then replace, or a brand new filter, you just slot it back in there. To start the removal of the airbox, there are 3 screws we're going to unscrew. That one there is a size 30, as well as that one, and there's an identical one as this on the other side, so we need to loosen those 3. There are a few items we need to disconnect. One of them is this pipe here, has two grips on each side. Squeeze and pull. This electrical connector at the top has a metal spring locking mechanism. If you push it in from one side with a screwdriver, it will simply lift off. This connector here has a little tab which, if you just take it out with the screwdriver, it will come out like that. And then this loom is clipped onto the side of the airbox here, so we'll just unclip that. That frees up our airbox. Next, we remove this little box by pulling out plastic pin above and the one below. That'll separate like that. And then we disconnect the battery. There are two Torx screws, size 30 in there, 1 and 2. Once you loosen those, the box will be ready to be lifted. The airbox now simply lifts off, and there are two tubes. Take note of where they link into the box. Simply pull them out, and there's an electrical connector that pops out with a little thumb tab, and you can rest the box on the side of the bike. It hangs off by one fat tube at the front. Remove these connectors from the spark plugs. Might be a bit tight. You need to give it a good tug. They do come up. The spark plugs take a small spark plug socket, so remove it, we'll put in the new one, and then we put everything back in the reverse order. Once you've replaced the spark plugs, connect the cables to the top. On each side you'll feel a small little click as it goes into place. Bring the airbox back up into position. Don't forget the two pipes. And the electrical connector. Nice little click, and that will simply drop back into place. Line up the airbox with this tubular portion here on each side. Make sure this pipe is up and out of the way, and simply push it down into place. Clip this wiring loom back onto the side of the airbox. Reconnect that connector there. This one to the top, and this pipe in there. Attach this unit back to the side of the box here. Make sure that this little bracket goes in between. The pins simply fall in. Line up the airbox so that you can get the two screws back in the front of it. Tighten those. Give the battery and its compartment a wipe. replace the battery, attach the connectors. You'll hear a few clicks from your instruments. Replace this plastic portion over the battery. It's a size 30. Put the two size 30 screws on each side of the airbox. Replace the air filter into its housing there. That will slot down and in. And you have two clips, one on either side. Now we can replace all the fairings and the seat before we top up with oil. While you have the right side top fairing off, it's a good idea to just check your coolant level, make sure it's in between those two lines. To reinstall the top right fairing, get the little tabs in behind the bottom fairing and push the front of the fairing in. Then you can put all the screws in place. There's one in the front, one in the back, and you're going to put 4 screws in there and replace the mirror with the size 4mm Allen key bolts. The left hand side goes in the same way. Get these tabs under the front fairing and push the fairing onto the pins. Then you can put the screws in, 4 along there, 1 along there, and you have one that goes inside at the back. The top fairing simply sits on the top. Mind these little tabs, you need to get them in underneath the side fairings. And there are little grooves and tabs which need to line up. Place like that. And there are 8 screws that hold that in place, for the side, for that side. Now we can put the seat back in place. One of the things with these bikes is this little plastic tab. You'll probably find if you're having difficulty getting this tab to slot into that slot on your seat, somebody installed it incorrectly in the past and the weight has pushed the tab and bent it down lower than it should be. What you might want to do is take a heat gun, gently warm up the joint there and get the tab lifted up a little bit so that when you reinstall the seat, every time you can get the tab to slot into that gap. Like so. Time for oil. These bikes take 15W40 mineral oil. Stay away from the synthetic stuff. According to the manual, it's 15W40, but in some places that might be difficult to get. 10W40 will do the job. And I can't stress the importance of having a funnel that holds itself in place. I've secured this one with a bungee cord. Just gives you one less thing to worry about. I'm pretty sure the benefits of having a funnel are self-evident. Keep checking the oil with the dipstick until it sits within the minimum and maximum range, preferably closer to max, because you will use oil as time goes on, and you're ready to hit the road then.